Are you trying to navigate this crazy thing called life? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Unraveling with Rayne.
Good morning, my loves, and welcome to the podcast. So today is an abnormally warm December day, and I'm just soaking that in. I'm taking it because I know it's going to get cold real quick, and I'm going to enjoy it while it's here. Speaking of December, we all know what that means. That means Christmas will be upon us very, very soon. And with 3 children in our house, oh boy, is it a busy time with the activities and the decorating and the treats and the singing and the playing, and it's so wonderful, and I enjoy every little bit of it. But this year's a little bit different in our house. We've got our oldest who is struggling with her belief in Santa. And I was not ready for this. I don't know how most of you parents out there feel, but it was not something that I was really prepared for. I was not ready for her to start questioning and losing that sense of magic that Santa embodies for Christmas. And this caused me to really break down why I had such a heightened response to this transition in life for her. Because it's totally natural. We all at some point question if Santa is real or not. And I just kind of had my head in the sand and didn't want us to be there, but we are there. And so this is the topic on my brain this month as we get closer and closer to Christmas. So on my Facebook page, I posed this question: what age did you stop believing in Santa and why? And I got a ton of really great responses. Thank you to everybody who responded and added their 2 cents. It was kind of comical to see some of the responses, and I could relate to some of them. Thank you again, you guys, for contributing and kind of helping me piece together my thoughts in this podcast today. But before I jump into the responses, I wanted to share my story with Santa. So I had gotten to the age around 10 where I wasn't really sure if Santa was real or not. And my parents around this time were taking a class called Growing Kids God's Way. And in this course, it had brought up the idea of how when we lie to our children or mislead them, that it could potentially cause them to not have faith in God or in Jesus or in the Bible. And so my parents decided that they were just going to sit us all down and explain that Santa is kind of a game that is played, and it's fun to do and it's exciting, but there is no Santa Claus. And it didn't really impact me much. I had always been a child who very much felt magic in situations and the positive, uplifting side of things and how that manifests with people and how we carry that with us. Even though I didn't understand what that was then, I didn't have the words or the ability to articulate those feelings, but I always carried that with me. I always inherently understood that whatever I bring to the table is what I will receive back. So I was very much a glass is half full kind of kid. And I don't know why that stuck with me. I know that a lot of times kids lose that along the way. But it did, and I'm glad for it. And I mean, I wouldn't change it for anything. It definitely helped me out of a lot of sticky situations and thought patterns that could have been very detrimental. But in regards to Santa, I just took it for what it was and enjoyed it. Now, I don't know that every child would respond that way. And based on the responses I got, it sounded like it was a very tough transition for some children. And this really was part of my hang-up with our oldest, is I didn't want this to be a tough transition for her. I see a lot of myself in her, and I know that we do that as parents. We identify certain parts of our kids that we can relate with, but my daughter, I swear sometimes it's like a copy of me was made and she was just plopped in front of me, and I'm like, dang, which is beautiful and terrifying all at the same time. But what I'm trying to say is that I know my daughter carries that same essence with her of understanding her environment and the energy and the magic that is there, and what we can do with that and how that impacts other people. But I wasn't sure how she was going to take knowing that Santa actually wasn't a person. So we haven't actually had this talk with her yet. I am still working with the exact details of how we're going to explain this to her, and I think that we're probably like 98% there. So this will be a discussion that we'll be having with her soon, and after getting feedback from others and doing a little bit more research on my own, I feel much more confident in my ability to have this conversation with her. So let's jump into our responses here. It looked like the average age that people stopped believing in Santa is between 8 and 10. Now, this is obviously a very small grouping. I only had, I think, 21 people that responded. So it's a very small chunk of people, but based on that, between 8 and 10 was the average age. And believe it or not, some people didn't believe in Santa ever. They just inherently understood that, okay, this is a little too far out, I don't feel the vibe there, and they just never fully believed, which is fine. I don't know that there's anything wrong with that at all, actually. I think it's interesting when kids understand at a deeper level. So that was interesting. There was actually two or three, if I recall, that said that they had never truly believed, which was somewhat high to me. I felt like that number was pretty high. But again, small group to pull from. And then there were a few people who said that they had never believed, or they stopped believing within that 8 to 10 range. And instead of saying anything to their parents, they just went on with the tradition, and everybody just understood that they didn't believe anymore, but nothing was said, no conversation was had. And it didn't look like anybody who had a response like that was upset about that. They seemed completely content with that, to just keep moving with the symbol of Santa and not needing any conversation with their parents. And then on the other hand, there were some people that responded, and it looked like the ones that found out younger, probably around that 5-6 age, where it was really hard for them, and it was a complete disappointment. And given their age, that would make sense. It's kind of I wouldn't say fragile, but it is still in your molding years, and to have such a magical buildup of something or someone, and then to find out that it's not real, could be devastating. And there were a lot of people that responded that said that their parents just said, yeah, this is the way it is, kind of like my parents, it's fun to do. And then there were some parents who tried their darndest to cover up the truth of Santa and prolong the illusion for the child. And this is where I found myself in sticky territory when contemplating how to handle this situation with our oldest. I had it heavy on my heart. I didn't want to feed her more untruths. I wanted to encourage her to lean into her intuition, and to know that if she has an inclination, that it's probably correct. More than likely, she's on the right track. And so I had to be very careful in my responses about Santa until my husband and I really had a chance to formulate how we were going to go about this. So it challenged my thinking in a lot of ways. And from a parent's perspective, and especially from a mother's perspective, we really want to shelter our babies and keep them little as long as we can. And in the same moment, we want them to grow and be strong and confident and make moves to be more self-reliant and leave the nest. So it's kind of a give and take, and this Santa topic really brought that up for me. And I'm having to hold space for that and be okay with that and understand that I have conflicting feelings about something. And in the process of having those conflicting feelings, I need to figure out how I want to handle the situation. So after contemplating how to discuss this topic with our oldest, knowing her and knowing her natural state, my husband and I decided that we would find some information and some videos for her to watch on how Santa came about. And we pre-screened a bunch of different documentaries and such for her to watch. And we decided that first giving her this information will be a great historical education for her, and it will broaden her horizons a bit on other cultures and all of the little bits and pieces that came from all around the world to create what we know as Santa here in the United States. And from there, we're hoping to encourage her to really just embrace what Santa symbolizes. That giving, loving, caring, spreading joy, all of these wonderful things that we do at Christmas time, and how it's not about Santa being a person, but a feeling and a reminder, which will be kind of difficult. Santa has taken a great leap into the material world, which is fine. Material things aren't inherently bad. However, I believe that there is a lot of focus on that aspect of Santa, which makes sense. I mean, he's a fat man that brings you presents. Sounds pretty material. But it's more so about the joy that those gifts bring and how we get to help spread what the idea of Santa is really speaking to, and that is to spread joy and love to others. So that's how we've decided to handle or to go about the situation with our oldest. I would love to hear more feedback on others' stories and ideas on Santa and how they manage that with their children or how that was handled when they were growing up. Santa brings an unspoken sense of comfort and understanding and wonder. Santa promotes wonder and really reaching and looking past what is right in front of our face. And I think that that's something that we need to also remember. Merry Christmas, my loves. We'll chat soon.
Thank you all so much for listening. If you would like to help support Unraveling with Rayne, go to patreon.com/unravelingwithrayne. When you become a patron, you receive bonus content such as behind-the-scenes footage, along with other special content that you won't be able to find anywhere else. Music for Unraveling with Rayne was provided by Barefoot Randy.